Closed captioning, is that?
It's on.
It's on. We're all on.
Yeah.
Excellent. Close all of these things over here. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hello, hello. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. I want to see the participants. Hi, everyone. Welcome, everybody. So we are right on time. This is perfect. Yeah, it's day 4. So if you're watching live, hello. If you're watching on the recording, hello. Yeah, so day 4.
Where you are?
Yeah, yeah. Today, let's go ahead and share the screen, huh? Okay. Oops, let me do something really quick. I have to go over here. There. Huh?
Okay.
Let me start this again. Go. There we go. So, welcome to day 4. Today we decided we shifted around a bit. We wanted to talk actually about something we haven't been able to really address in depth yet. We wanted to go into it more in depth today. So we're going to do that. It's about symptoms versus causes and how you can use this for troubleshooting what the issues with your contact are. Or is not on the bid. How do you figure out what it is, and how do you make sense of all the problems that you're having with your horse being on the bid? So we're going to go into that a little bit today. Thomas, next screen. So a few reminders. Please make sure you save your questions for tomorrow. On day 5 tomorrow, we're going to dive right into all of your questions. So save them for then. Please show up live so you can ask them. And in the meantime, go ahead and use the chat here for conversation with each other. If you need to, you have a question, you have a problem, go ahead and you can type in the comments for our team. They can help address that. Make sure you toggle it so it says everyone. It defaults to say panelists or host. And that means we would get it, but the team won't see it, and we won't necessarily see it because we're busy talking. So please only use the Q&A option here. If you're on Zoom, you'll notice there's a Q&A option. In fact, somebody's already put something in the Q&A to alert us to problems that are happening while we are sharing our screen, because we can't see that chat. We can't see anything otherwise to find out if there is a problem. And my team also messages me when there's a problem. I'm just checking it. Okay. Everything looks good. So, and then make sure you use the Facebook group afterwards to continue this conversation with each other. I love that. And share your takeaways. I also really enjoy seeing all of your takeaways, what you got out of the training, because everybody is at a different stage in their learning and everybody will get different things, but sharing what your big aha actually helps cement it for others. So when you do that, you're actually helping others, and by reading the other comments and shares, you'll be reminded of other things, and maybe them talking about it actually helps cement an idea further for you. So it can actually help your learning. This is community-based learning. So we have a prize again today. You have to stay to the end and we will choose somebody random from the participants list. We are giving away the Young Horse Arena GPS ebook. This is an ebook of exercises tailored towards the young horse in the first year under saddle, after they've been under saddle for a month or so, and they, can do the absolute basics. These are things you can start to work on. But it's not only for young horses. It's great for rehab horses. It's great for any horse that you want to go back and revisit the basics.
It's really for the first couple of years.
Yeah. Actually, it takes you all the way into beginning your lateral movements, actually. And it's not every exercise that you can do, but it's a sampling of exercises because people often say they don't know what to work on. So we came up with this. For those of you that are interested in this, it is available in our store. Just go to the website, artisticdressage.com, click on the store, and you'll find it there in the store. And so we'll give away one of those today at the end. Okay, so today we are going to talk about symptoms versus causes. What's the difference and how you can use understanding these for effective troubleshooting with your contact connection issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Thomas, let's
Yeah,
dive right in.
There's a list, right, of the most common in brain contact problems. So on the left we have symptoms, and on the right we have the cause, and it's sort of human nature to see something and then to try to address what you're seeing without thinking, where does that come from? Why is the horse doing this or not doing that? So if you immediately jump to trying to correct whatever you're seeing, then you're likely just trying to mess with symptoms, but you're not really addressing the underlying cause. And if you just address the symptoms, you're probably not going to be very successful, right? Or you may create additional problems that you didn't have before.
You'll, best case scenario, you have to continually address the symptoms because they just keep coming back.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you actually can make the situation worse or create bigger problems that are actually going to take even more to fix than if you had actually gone to the original root cause.
Yeah. So whenever something goes wrong, you always have to think and ask yourself, why is the horse doing this? Or where is this coming from? Why is this happening? Or, I always say, what did I do to deserve this, so to speak, because it's good to start with yourself and think about, well, what did I do, or what maybe did I do to cause this problem? Mm-hmm. And then you can go from yourself to the horse and then look at the big picture and try to trace the symptoms back to their root cause. And then you can address the root cause. And then if you diagnosed it correctly and decided on an effective remedy, then the symptom will go away. And sometimes when you address the root cause, you may find that there's more than one symptom that goes away, because there are several things going on that are all connected with each other through the same root cause. And so here on the left, we have the list of the most common brain contact problems, and then maybe the most typical cause, root cause that is responsible for the symptom. Like if you go to the top of the left column, too heavy, the horse leaning on the bit, usually that means the horse is on the forehand, the hind legs are pushing too much, they're extending the joints too much, but they don't carry enough. So if you have identified the root cause, then essentially you already have the remedy too. So if the hind legs push too much and they don't carry enough, you have to get them to carry more. The next question would be, well, how do I do that? In order to get the hind legs to carry more, they have to flex more. We use the body weight of the horse and the rider to flex the hind legs. And in order to be able to do that, the hind legs have to be under the body. So you may have to design an exercise that begins by bringing the one hind leg under the body in step one, and then step two, sit on that hind leg. Use your body weight, use the horse's body mass to flex that hind leg. And we talked a little bit about that last time, right? So you could use a form of sidestepping where you're engaging the inside hind, and the horse is essentially bending a little bit against the direction of travel. That could be a shoulder in, it could be a leg yield, it could be turning the forehand in motion. There's a variety of things. It could be enlarging the circle, very simple. Second step, sitting on that hind leg, putting weight on the hind leg, could be a turn. It could be a half halt. It could be a down transition, for example. It can be stirrup stepping. It could just be you emphasizing the downward motion, especially in the trot, when you feel, your body comes down after the suspension phase, one of the hind legs lands, and you could emphasize that downward motion with your whole body. When the hind leg touches down, that you were engaging that inside, for example. So you could ride a square or rectangle in a shoulder in position or shoulder 4. So then the inside hind leg gets engaged by the shoulder 4 or shoulder in, right? You're bringing that inside hind more under the body, a little bit in front of the outside hind.
Or
And
exercises that contain
exactly.
squares
Yeah,
and
exactly.
shoulder in. Yeah.
And then when you ride a 90-degree turn, a corner, you use the weight of the horse's forehand and your own body weight to flex that inside hind, right? And then that repeats itself, shoulder in turn, shoulder in turn. And if you make these patterns small enough, then there are just a few strides of shoulder in to engage, and then there is the turn. So you can make these squares and rectangles smaller or larger. You may have to experiment a little bit until you find the optimal size, but then you have a good ratio of engaging and flexing the hind leg, and that will supple that inside hind and strengthen the inside hind. And if you want to work on the opposite hind leg, you just change direction, do the same thing in the other direction. Right? So this would be one possibility. Shoulder in volte would be kind of the same thing, right? It can be done on a circle, it can be done on the whole school, few strides of shoulder in to engage the inside hind. And then when you ride a volte, it's like 4 consecutive corners. So you're using the weight of the forehand and your own body mass to flex that inside hind.
And there are often multiple things that you can do. It's not just one exercise, for example, or just one element. For example, if your horse doesn't do shouldering yet, you don't know how to do shouldering yet, you're not lost. There's other things you can do too. You're not that can serve that gymnastic component.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, you just want to use that principle, engage, flex, and there's a million different exercises at all levels of training.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, manifest that combination of engaging and then flexing the hind leg, right? We could even go straight, drive with your inside leg, swing up with your body. So your inside leg brings the inside hind under, and by swinging up with your body, you allow the hind leg to engage more, you allow the back to lift, and do that for a couple of strides, and then emphasize the downward motion for a couple of strides, and then your body mass will flex that hind leg. So you can do this just on a single track going straight. But as a general rule of thumb, the most difficult thing you can do is ride around the arena. Whole school. That's what our teacher always used to say. I know it sounds easy, but it's actually the hardest thing. It's much easier if you use a combination of turning and sidestepping and so on to maneuver the different body parts around. If you're just going straight or just on a 20-meter circle, it's actually much more difficult. It requires a lot more coordination on the part of the rider, in a way. Yeah, so the opposite mistake to being too heavy would be too light. That means the horse is behind the bit, the hind legs are not pushing enough. If the horse is behind the bit, usually it means they're not pushing enough, they're not approaching the bit enough. So if that is your diagnosis, the horse is not pushing enough, then the correction, the remedy would obviously be to make the horse push more behind. And that's something you can do with your seat. You can ask one of the hind legs to push more, and in the Spanish riding school tradition, the old Spanish riding school tradition, they used to ask the inside hind leg to push more. And you can do this on a circle, you can do this on straight lines, and asking the hind leg to push more is a seat aid, not a leg aid. The lower leg asks the horse to pick up the hind leg on that side, and your seat can ask the horse to push more with the hind leg that's on the ground. So using your back muscles, and you can use your both knees and inner thighs to give a quick little nudge when one hind leg is on the ground, and that sends the horse forward. And of course, then, if the horse was behind the aids, you ask him to go forward, and you ask him to push more, it can happen that they speed up, which means the horse sort of understands you, but sort of misunderstands you too. Then you have to clarify and say,
quietly insert.
forward, but keep the tempo, which means then you probably have to half halt and tell the horse slow down. So it's like go forward slowly,
Yeah,
you know,
or
push slowly.
Yeah, go forward, but not that fast.
Yeah,
Go
exactly.
forward, but not quicker. Go forward, but
exactly.
not quicker. So, you know, the horse will try to find the easiest solution, the easiest answer. And if the horse has trouble or it's difficult for the horse to figure out how to really take longer strides, the longer strides that you're looking for, the horse will answer by taking quicker strides, but that's not quite what we want. So you have to have a conversation with the horse, with your aides, that when you go back and forth, so you ask something, the horse gives you an answer, you say, yes, but not exactly like that. And then you further refine what you're saying to the horse, what you're, you know, communicating to the horse. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. In time, we probably won't be able to go through the entire list.
But we can go through a few more.
We can go, yeah, exactly. We can continue a little bit, Doug. Here, if the horse is above the bit, it's always a lack of balance and a lack of straightness, which leads to bracing. But this lack of balance and lack of straightness can have a variety of causes too. It can either be the rider who just interferes if the rider's seat is unbalanced, that pushes the horse out of balance, and then they go above the bit. Or like if the rider balances on the reins, for example, then the horse will brace in the underneck and the jaw and the paw, and then, you know, usually the head goes up and the back goes down, and then they, you know, they're above the bit. So that could be, you know, caused by the rider. Could also be past training experiences, confirmation that the horse is pushing too hard behind, pushing himself onto the forehand. So then, depending on neck conformation and so on, some horses go above the bit. Crookedness is often a cause for the horse being above the bit. Like some horses are very sensitive to that. If you're riding, for example, in that hollow direction, and the shoulder just deviates this much to the outside, some horses already invert because now they're leaning on the outside shoulder, and then they disconnect themselves at the base of the neck, and then the head goes up and the withers in the back go down. And if you're able to straighten them and align them properly on the line of travel, they become rounder. So when the horse is above the bit, you have to do some more research and find out, well, you know, is it balance? Is it straightness? As a combination, why is the horse unbalanced and crooked? Am I causing it? Am I crooked? Am I sitting crooked? Maybe I'm stiff in my right hip, you know, or stiff in my right wrist, and that makes the horse crooked and throws the horse off balance. So you have to check your seat, check your own balance, and then you have to try to help the horse find his balance. So you can choose a line of travel. It could be anything, could be a circle, a square, a rectangle, anything. Put the horse's feet on that line of travel. Establish a steady tempo, not too fast, not too slow. The horse needs a certain energy level, not too high, not too low. Too much energy, the horse will be stiff and braced and tense. Not enough energy, the horse will be strung out and fall apart. So you have to adjust these parameters of the gait. And with the tempo too, if the horse is too fast or too slow, he won't be able to find this balance and get right. So it has to be just right. Every horse has its own tempo in terms of beats per minute or steps per minute. And you have to find that, you know, which sometimes takes a little bit. Some horses offer you a tempo that's too fast and you have to kind of slow them down. Other horses are too slow, you have to speed them up a little bit. Some horses are tense and you need to relax them, calm them. Some horses are too laid back and you need to rev them up a little bit. So you have the right energy level, the right tempo and so on, and then put their feet on the line of travel. And that will help the horse find his balance under the rider's weight and helps him straighten. And when you have all these parameters of the gait working correctly, then most horses will become round and come on the bit. Sometimes there are additional, muscle blockages because of the conformation or history, training history and so on. And then you have to search, well, what else is going on, that's preventing him to come on the bit. But it always starts with line of travel, steady tempo, not too fast, not too slow, appropriate energy level, not too high, not too low. That's always the starting point. A lot of problems will go away just after you've done these three things. Then a lot of horses will come around and be soft to sit and have a nice contact. And if that's not enough, then you have to keep looking what else is going on. What am I missing? What am I not seeing? Am I interfering somewhere? Is the horse, blocked somewhere? Then you can test the different areas of the horse's body and see if there is some resistance hiding there in a certain area of the body. Against the hand is a little bit like above the bit, where the horse kind of goes up and against you. That can also be caused by lack of connection from the rider's pelvis to the elbows, or from lack of connection from the rider's core to the forearms and reins. Mm-hmm. Some horses will fight against that. If you don't have a good connection from your pelvis to the reins, they get very annoyed. Even if you keep the reins light and you're not really doing much, they still get irritated and fuss with their head. Whereas if you have that connection, then they become steady and they don't mind the connection all of a sudden. When the horse curls up and shortens the neck, curling up and short neck are often together. They often happen at the same time. They're usually caused by a lack of flexion of the haunches. Usually that also means that the hind legs are not stepping under enough and that they're pushing the croup up. And when the horse raises the croup, horses with a long, flexible neck will curl up. So the croup goes up, the head goes down, but too far down. And so there, obviously, the remedy would be engaging the hind leg, flexing the hind leg, and then the head will come up. When you have a horse that comes with issues like that, you have to expect them to go a little bit from one extreme to the other. So the horse that used to be curled up because maybe somebody rode him like that and they wanted him to be behind the vertical, and you try to retrain the horse, they will often go from being curled up to going above the bit. And that's okay. Or the horse that used to be above the bit all the time will suddenly be a little behind the vertical. And that's okay. The horse goes from one mistake to the opposite mistake, and it's progress, even though it's still a mistake, but it's actually progress. Mm-hmm. It's like a pendulum that swings from one extreme to the other. And then when you feel like, okay, now he's starting to make the opposite mistake, then it's, on the one hand, a reason to celebrate because you were successful with your correction. On the other hand, it's also time to change strategy a little bit and try to get the pendulum to swing a little back in the other direction again. And then this will go back and forth a few times, and you want to try to make these movements of that pendulum a little smaller. So every time it stays a little closer to the middle, to the happy medium. And eventually maybe it stays in the middle consistently. But that's very important so that you don't get frustrated or you don't get paranoid because now your horse is making the opposite mistake. It is a sign of progress. Also, it's a sign that now it's time to adjust your riding strategy a little bit. So next one, kinky neck, unstable base of the neck. A lot of horses break at the base of the neck, right? They push through one shoulder, and then it's literally a break. If you look from above, it looks a little like here, the body like this, and then the neck like this, and there, it's not a smooth transition from the shoulder or the rib cage to the spine, but there's a sharp angle. That always means that the rider is using the inside rein too much and not using the outside rein enough. That's a very common thing, so then correction is obvious, right? Shorten the outside rein, give the inside rein, and then problem goes away. When you have floppy reins, like with an intermittent contact, that means usually the reins are too long. Usually there's also a lack of connection between the seat and the forearm. So that pelbo we talked about is then probably not there.
Yeah, so you can fix it with various things that actually just the rider.
Yeah, it's more of a seat issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe the horse isn't moving with enough energy.
Sometimes.
Could be, but yeah, it's usually a seat issue. Yeah. Same thing. The unsteady contact is often a lack of connection between the rider's midsection and rein and arm. It can also be blockages in the horse's body, somewhere in the pole, for example.
Stiffness in the hip, stiffness in the pole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then if you have an uneven contact, like more weight in one rein than the other, that's always a crookedness issue. Then the hips and shoulders are not aligned properly, probably, and the horse is leaning on the one rein and a little bit behind the other. Noisy hands are maybe less a rein contact issue, but more of a seat issue. That usually means that the rider has stiff hips, maybe stiff elbows. Anytime
there's two kinds of noisy hands too. There's the noisy hands with the fiddling rider, the rider that's constantly moving the hands, even unconsciously. They're not even realizing they're doing it anymore because it's such a habit. And then there's the noisy hands from the seat that is stiff. So the stiffness shows up in the noisy bouncing hands. So both of these are kind of from a different root cause, actually.
And anytime you see excess movement somewhere, it's usually a sign that certain joints are moving too much because they're compensating for other joints that are not moving enough. So if your hips are stiff and your knees are stiff and you're not swinging enough in your hip joints, it's likely that your hands will start to go up and down like this, or your lower legs will bounce like that. And if you can identify which joint in your body is not moving and you can get that joint to free up, then your hands and your lower legs will become quiet. So there's no point in telling a student, sit still, keep your hands quiet, or keep your legs quiet, because that makes them focus on that part that's noisy and they try to keep it quiet. So they race and then it gets even noisier, makes it worse. Right? So instead you have to find out where is the rider locking up, where is the rider not moving. And that often has to do with balance. If the rider is not well grounded and not well supported in the saddle, they start bracing somewhere. If they start bracing, they start to get noisy. Usually the way it goes. To some extent, that's true for the horse too. If you see funny movements of the horse's head, usually it's also like a compensation because other parts, other joints of the horse's body are not flexing and extending enough, usually not flexing enough, and it's usually the hind legs that are not doing their job. So then the horse does funny things with the head, some I don't know, nod up
like
and
you said,
down,
unsteady contact, blockages in the horse's body that are not allowing the horse to let the energy come through. So we can address that with exercises and things that help rebuild these pathways in the horse's body.
And then
asymmetrical
hands. You see sometimes riders with one hand up and forward and one hand down in their lap, basically back and down. That's caused by the crookedness of the horse, because the horse leans on one rein and is not approaching the other. Usually. And then they you move their hands in these different positions to create a sort of a more similar feel, right? And usually they lift the hand on the stiffer side of the horse and they go forward, so the horse doesn't feel as heavy. And then they come back and down with the hand on the hollow side where the horse is kind of hiding behind a bit. And then they actually make the crookedness worse by doing that. So you'd have to keep both hands next to each other, but align the horse properly. Like move the shoulder towards the hollow side and move the hind leg of the hollow side a little bit towards the diagonal shoulder. And then the horse will lighten up on the heavier side, and he will start to fill the rein on the side where he was hiding behind the contact.
And then sometimes you see this in riders that ride multiple horses. They'll always do the same thing. And this is where it actually probably most definitely stemmed originally from the rider riding a crooked horse at some earlier point. And this became a habitual movement pattern in the rider's body, which now is just unconscious habit. And we have to rewire this in the rider's body, change help improve the rider's body awareness so they become aware that they're doing it, and give them the tools to be able to correct it, to be able to sit differently, to be able to sit evenly. And carry themselves.
Some riders freeze on one arm and hand and have that hand higher, and then when you look, they have a stiff shoulder and a stiff arm. And it's like they hold themselves and stabilize themselves with that rigid arm, and of course that messes up the horse's balance and crookedness too. So that's a possibility.
It has a ripple effect on the horse.
So it could be that the rider is just crooked and unbalanced in herself, right? And then that transfers itself to the horse.
Yes. That's where the Feldenkrais lesson that we had for you on day 2. If you haven't done it, I'll go to day 2, or if you're watching this on the replay, or for example on YouTube, there will be a link in the description to this. The X exercise, finding your X, this can really help with all of these. It's a beautiful Feldenkrais lesson that you can do time and time and time again to help you improve many of these issues. And there are many, many other Feldenkrais lessons that you can do, but this one is a good starting point. So lovely questions here. And I see the team is answering some of them. Please, if you would like us to answer the question, please come tomorrow and post your question then, and we will answer all of the questions. Everything you want answered, we will answer tomorrow in the big day 5 Q&A. The grand finale.
See lots of interesting questions. Can you explain straightness? Well, how much time do you have?
Actually, I think the team actually answered, or no, actually Melissa Smith explained it, but we would love to go in depth into this. And we actually do whole trainings on just straightness too.
We have a whole course.
We have a whole course on straightness. It's all, it's all interlocked. Everything affects everything else. But we're not going to answer it today because we're already half an hour in. We can answer it for you tomorrow if you want to ask this question again. I'd be very happy to answer it then.
Exactly. Just post it again tomorrow in the chat.
Oh, good. Saskia says, I love the X. It works for me. Yes, it's a great lesson. I find it ingeniously useful. I revisit it all the time myself.
So Clark wants a PDF of this chart. It's a great checklist.
Okay. I'll ask the team to put that up for you. It probably won't be available till tomorrow. Sandy, you're here. Can you make a note of that? Yeah, please. And send it to Sarah, please. Thanks.
And Julie here says, my boy doesn't flex his hind legs enough but pushes loads. Wonder if this can be a physical problem from the hocks. Possible that there's some arthritis. I know I can't help it.
Questions.
But so you have to get the horse to use his hip joints, that will protect the hocks too. The hocks, the hips are very powerful. There are huge muscles around the hip joints, and the horses often don't know they have hips and they're not using them enough. So that's part of our training too, that we teach the horse to become aware of the hip joints and use them and use those muscles around the hip joints, and that protects all the lower joints, the hocks and the fetlocks and the tendons, and the hind legs. So we should slowly but surely wrap it up because it's been half an hour, unless you have something else that you
Let's share the screen.
share.
Mhm. Thank you.
This
Come
one.
back to this, yeah. And so, yeah, you, as somebody suggested, you're welcome to screen. Oh, go back to this, sorry. Screenshot this and save it, but you can also, I'll ask the team to put it into a PDF for you for tomorrow. And it'll be available tomorrow. It'll take about 12 hours to get it up. Okay, so here we are at the end of day 4, and our prize is the Young Horse Arena GPS, and I randomly chose somebody out of the participants, Jane Cook. Jane Cook, congratulations. To claim your prize, please just email ritterdressage@gmail.com. Our team will set it up for you in your account. And for anybody else that's interested in buying it, just go to our store on artisticdressage.com. It's in there. So then day 4 homework, gather your questions, all of your questions you've had from these entire 4 days, gather them together, get them ready, and join us then for day 5, the big Q&A. Yeah. So there we go. And please drop into the Facebook group if you get a chance. Let me know what your big takeaway was for today. Maybe share also with everybody what of those issues that we listed do you struggle with, or are you dealing with right now? I would love to hear. So thank you, everybody. Let's stop the share just so that we can say goodbye with our faces full screen. Thank you, everybody. Love having you here.
Susan Tresca,
Yes.
will the Q&A be taped?
Yes, the Q&A will be taped every day. It is taped, yeah, for sure. So if you miss it, you can watch the recording, or if you want to rewatch it, you can, for sure. We'll see you, everybody, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bye.